On a crisp, silent morning in the vast stretches of Wyoming, 65-year-old Earl McKinley stood at the edge of his ranch, staring at the cracked soil beneath his boots. This land had been in his family for 5 generations, but it was now bringing loss instead of harvest. Drought, government environmental restrictions, rising taxes, and pressure from imported beef markets were all closing in. But what hurt him most was this: no politician seemed to care anymore. He strapped a handmade sign reading "Save Our Ranches" onto the back of his old pickup truck and hit the road. That day, he was heading to the state capitol to attend a public agricultural policy hearing, a session where, allegedly, the voices of ranchers like him would be heard. The highlight of the event? A visit from Senator Claire Ashford, a well-known liberal figure from Washington, D.C., who claimed to stand with the farmers. But when Earl arrived at the venue, disappointment was immediate. The front rows were occupied by well-dressed lobbyists. The ranchers, those who woke before dawn to feed cattle and mend fences, had been pushed to the back. Earl's name was 17th on the speaker's list. Hours passed, filled with the same vague words: carbon offsets, livestock emissions, sustainable food chains. Buzzwords made for cities, not for soil-worn hands like his. Finally, it was his turn. He rose slowly, his frame tired but proud, and approached the microphone. His voice echoed through the auditorium. "Senator Ashford, my name is Earl McKinley. I'm the last in a line of cattle ranchers in Wyoming that stretches back 5 generations. We listen to the land. But for years now, people like you have only listened to the cities. According to your policies, our cattle are criminals. Our tractors are villains. So tell me, Senator, how do my children grow up here? How do we keep this life alive?" A hush fell over the room. All eyes turned to the senator. She gave a stiff smile, rehearsed, distant, and responded in a condescending tone. "Mr. McKinley, I appreciate your emotional appeal, but the modern world is changing. We can no longer support outdated methods that threaten our planet's balance. It's not about sentiment. It's about science. It's time to move forward." The air turned heavy. Earl's face hardened. What he had lived and bled for was dismissed as nostalgia. As Claire Ashford continued her speech, some ranchers quietly left. Others sat still, staring down at the floor. 1 or 2 wept, not out of weakness, but frustration. And then, a low rumble outside. It was the sound of a distant helicopter. No one in that room knew yet. But everything was about to change. Senator Claire Ashford's words echoed like a cold siren through the hall. Her eyes held a calculated confidence, her tone laced with condescension. To her, the generations of ranchers sitting before her weren't the backbone of a nation. They were a problem to be managed. Earl McKinley stood his ground, silent but unyielding. He locked eyes with the senator, but his microphone had already been muted. The moderator moved on, and Ashford, emboldened, took control once more. "The true ally of the American farmer is nature itself, and to preserve it, we must take bold steps. Traditional farming methods are outdated. The solution is innovation and forward thinking." A small group of young activists in the front rows applauded enthusiastically. But the ranchers? Silent. The weight of years of being ignored pressed down on them. They had come hoping for change, for respect. Instead, they were being lectured. Then, suddenly, a low rumble broke through the senator's speech. The doors flung open. 2 men in black suits entered first, and behind them, commanding attention with every step, Donald Trump walked into the hall. The energy shifted immediately. Applause broke out. A chorus of gasps, murmurs, and cheers swept through the room. Trump, dressed in a deep navy suit and wearing his signature resolve, moved confidently toward the stage. Claire Ashford froze. Her smile faltered. She tried to stay composed. "Mr. Trump, this wasn't a scheduled visit, was it?" Trump offered a tight smile. He stepped up to the podium, and the room fell silent. "I don't follow schedules, Claire. I follow the people. And these people? They're the real America. You ignore them, and you ignore the foundation of this country." Thunderous applause erupted. Trump turned toward the ranchers, then back to the senator. "These folks aren't clinging to the past. They're fighting to survive. You sit in Washington and call them outdated. But the truth is, they're descendants of the very people who built this country." Senator Ashford's face flushed red. Her polished confidence cracked. Trump stepped down from the podium, walking directly toward Earl McKinley. He extended his hand. Earl, surprised, took it. His palm was rough, hardened by decades of labor, but in that moment, it trembled. No politician had ever gripped his hand like this. "Mr. McKinley, you are not alone anymore." The room burst into standing applause. Ranchers, once invisible, now stood proud. Some wiped tears from their cheeks. Others clutched their hats to their chests. Because for the first time in years, someone powerful was standing with them. Trump gripped the microphone tightly. The silence in the hall was thick, like the stillness before a thunderstorm. His eyes locked onto Senator Ashford. Behind him stood dozens of ranchers, no longer slumped in their chairs, but sitting straighter, hope returning to their posture. Now, only one voice mattered at the podium, and that voice echoed through every heart in the room. "Claire, while you stand here questioning the lives of these people, have you ever considered their contribution to this country? To our economy? To our culture? To the very soul of America? Or do you just care about the applause from your elite friends in Washington?" Ashford's lips tightened. She shifted slightly, trying to interject, but Trump wasn't finished. He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a thick folder. He raised several documents into the air. "Here, penalty notices sent to ranchers. Here's one. An $18,000 fine slapped on a family in Kansas because of a small irrigation violation. Your name's on it, Claire. And here, another file. A 96-year-old woman in Montana had her ranch threatened with closure because she exceeded the sustainability quota on livestock. Again, Washington's signature is all over it." Gasps filled the room. Ranchers leaned forward, eyes wide. Some took out their phones, photographing the papers. Trump's voice rose. "You're not protecting these people. You're suffocating them. You say it's about science, but the science you talk about is a weapon. It's a club used by big corporations to wipe out small farmers." Ashford finally snapped, "This is demagoguery, Mr. Trump. The world is changing. Should we ignore scientific data and climate responsibility?" Trump's reply thundered through the hall. "We're not denying science. We're rejecting your twisted version of it. Your sustainability is unsustainable for American families. You call these people outdated? I call them irreplaceable. The future of this country doesn't lie in lobbyist-funded tech farms. It lies in the hands of real people who understand the land." The room exploded with applause. Chairs scraped the floor as ranchers stood. Some shouted, "USA! USA!" Others clapped until their hands were red. Hats flew into the air. Tears streamed down weathered cheeks. Earl McKinley stood near the corner, overwhelmed. For the first time in years, he wasn't just watching history. He was part of it. Senator Ashford returned to her seat. Her composure was gone. Her silence was louder than any words she could have spoken. Trump paused, his expression solemn. Then he spoke, softer this time. America's future is rooted in her soil, and those who respect the land should shape that future. If you refuse to listen to them, you don't deserve to lead them. He turned to Earl and gave a respectful nod. Your story, sir, will be heard by this entire nation. After Trump left the hall, there was a moment of stillness. But it wasn't calm. It was the silence that comes just before a wave. The next morning, across the country, one image dominated every screen. Donald Trump shaking hands with Earl McKinley on a dusty stage in Wyoming. The headline below it read, "Trump, America's backbone will not be forgotten." Earl McKinley was no longer just a rancher from a forgotten town. He had become a national symbol of resistance. Even networks that typically avoided covering such stories, CNN, MSNBC, couldn't ignore it. Liberal commentators tried to downplay Trump's appearance as a stunt, but the people saw something different, something real. In Texas, a young rancher said on TikTok, "My grandpa cried watching that speech. He said it's the first time in 40 years someone stood up for him." In Ohio, a female farmer appeared live on local news. Senator Ashford turned her back on us. But Trump, he looked us in the eyes. Soon, a movement began. The hashtag #Stand with Farmers trended across all platforms. Within 72 hours of Trump's appearance, thousands of ranchers began submitting petitions to their state legislatures. They demanded the reversal of harsh environmental penalties, stronger support for domestic agriculture, and protection for small family-owned farms. Washington was stunned. White House advisors scrambled to gauge the political fallout. And then, Trump issued a message from his social media platform. America belongs to those who love her soil. It's time we returned the land to the hands that cherish it. A new agricultural reform plan is coming. Shortly after, a quiet press release came from Senator Ashford's office. The senator will embark on a listening tour to better understand the concerns of America's agricultural communities. But everyone knew what that really meant. She was retreating. Because the people had finally found their voice. Because the cry of the land had not gone unheard. And because one man picked up that cry and turned it into a roar. That evening, Earl McKinley returned to his ranch. He looked out across the open plains, but this time his gaze carried hope. He wrapped his arms around his grandson and whispered, "This land can breathe again, son." Someone listened. Change might not come today, but it's coming. And under the wide Wyoming sky, filled with stars, the wind carried a new message. Real America is not done fighting.